Hi, everyone. So far, we have 2 attendees, it looks like. Thank you for joining the strategy webinar for SMAC, hosted by SMAC. We have 2 great speakers today. I'm going to take just a minute and kind of go through really quick kind of our next announcement, which if I can get it to go. Here we are. So just to kick us off, we are looking at doing sessions in the fall. If there's speakers that are interested, if you have topics, please submit them to smac@sitecore.com. We're thinking September, take a break for October, as October will be Sitecore Symposium in Nashville, Tennessee this year. And we're going to then maybe do another one in November if we have enough speakers and enough people want to do that, just before all of the MVP applications are due. We'll make sure that you guys have plenty of time and opportunity. If you would like to present, you can. So let me just go ahead and introduce today's speakers and we will get started. So today up first, we have Deepthi, and she's going to be talking about future-proofing strategy, constructing an XM Cloud roadmap. So looking forward to that one. And then going second will be Megan, and that's going to be on the better training means clients who love Sitecore. I think that is a very relevant topic and something we will all be interested in hearing about. Each speaker will have about 20 to 25 minutes, and then you guys that are attending do not have speaker access or rights, but you will be able to use the Q&A function that you see here in the Teams. Just click on Q&A. I'll post a message in there as we start speaking, and feel free to ask questions and we'll answer them as we can. All right, Deepthi, all you.
Thank you, Krista. Okay, let me make sure I share the right screen. That is a problem with all of us, right? Accidentally
100%.
sharing some Slack. Must have happened to you in the past. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining in. I'm super psyched to be here. This is Deepthi Katta, and Krista, thank you for that introduction. And I currently work as a technical director at Verndale, leading cross-functional teams with various challenges. And I must say, there are a few days I die, but I love to, die and get back, I guess. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, a lot of challenges. I love my role. And today I'm going to talk about future-proofing strategy and on XM Cloud roadmap. I just want to start off by saying you all that this is by no means or shape or form an XM Cloud 101, because most of us now know what XM Cloud is, right? Like to some extent, at least. There has been a lot of buzz around, and same time last year, I would say it was still fairly new, but not anymore. We have real live implementations out there. People know, people are aware of what XM Cloud is. But what this session for me is, the whole world is sort of, when opportunity is there, moving towards headless, right? But when it comes to convincing and taking the next leap for our clients, it's always tough. That's the tough part, according to me, because that's kind of sort of the role that I play usually, to ensure that people are excited about XM Cloud, headless architectures, but they have to kind of, be talked to in a certain way to help them take the next leap. So I'm hoping that this session will provide exactly that by building a sort of roadmap to help support that talk. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Of course, I said it's not 101, but we have to talk about what, like in a general sense, what XM Cloud is, just for the audience here and just to set the stage. And I'm also going to talk about business goals, like how do you see some of these questions from the clients, some of these conversations from the clients that will help you have a mental hint of like, oh, they can benefit from XM Cloud. And I'm going to just like tie it up by saying why XM Cloud. I know some of it may be like, oh, Deepthi, we know this. But I just want to kind of make sure that we are setting up the stage. And the fourth one here is thought fragments. I call it thought fragments because that is the essence of like thinking to me, to ensure that we can show a visual to the client on how to get there, right? They're excited. They know what XM Cloud is. Business goal has been accomplished. We know what they want. Now, what is the real picture? Like, what do they need to kind of do some homework, think about, and transparency is the key, right? Like, I mean, again, I know several agencies have their own mantras, but at Verndale, we are pretty transparent. Like, we try and stay on the transparency key because that's what builds human connections and trust relationships. So when the client is really, truly excited, we want to give them like what it takes, like truly what it takes. So that's the thought fragments part of it. And then the last one is question and answers. Um, all right, let's keep going. So what is XM Cloud, right? And I want to keep it very high level, like I mentioned. We all know what XM Cloud is. It's a Sitecore content cloud offering for CMS, and that's again at the heart. XM Cloud is a CMS as well, right? But what is special about XM Cloud, right? Like, speed to market. You can come up and whip up a new site or a new microsite using the pages editor, using the components that are already made available from the development team. So hence the speed to market, it's pretty fast. And of course, because of the modern tech stack, which is headless architecture, it provides you the lightning fast performance. We, in fact, recently launched a site, and the page insights and the Google page insights and the testing the lighthouse and all of that kind of proved it to some extent. I know we always read about it. We are like curious, is this reality? 100% is. And thanks to all the CDN capabilities as well, like Vercel, Netlify, or like Experience Edge that comes with XM Cloud. It is 100% faster than usual, than the XP overhead that we do get sometimes. It's hard to combat some of the issues with CMS in play, but again, this is the beauty of XM Cloud. We're separating CMS as much as possible and the front end stack, which is the head. So yeah, flexibility on the tech stack and marketers. We all know that with headless kind of comes this as well, because the technical people can kind of embrace whatever tech stack they want, and then the marketers can again quickly make pieces and embed new things as fast as possible without leveraging dev team as much as possible, and reduced infrastructure costs. And again, Sitecore kind of manages the infrastructure here. When you sign up for XM Cloud, it is mostly like kind of reminds me of like Sitecore Managed Cloud. That was my kind of favorite subject. Even now it is, but XM Cloud is kind of gaining the momentum here. But it sort of reminds me in that nature with Managed Cloud. And again, scaling as well. There are no limits to XM Cloud as long as it's covered in the licensing agreement that you have with Sitecore. Now, I know it's very, very broad, but we'll talk a little bit more about XM Cloud after we speak about goals as well. Now, how do we know XM Cloud is a good fit for the client, right? Again, before coming to our roadmap, we first have to, the first things first, we have to establish if XM Cloud is the right product for where the business is heading, where the brand is heading, where the client is heading. So it's important to kind of listen to your client goals. They might be more than what I listed here, but based on my experience and based on where I sit in my role here at Verndale, these are some of the things that I hear when I say, okay, let's bring up the DXP, the full-on composable DXP. Some of these words, best of breed. This actually last year came up a lot, right? Like, where people are like, oh, we already have this like CRM that we are leveraging. We already have this, maybe even CDP to some extent that they're leveraging from Salesforce or some other products. They want to keep it. They want to keep it, but they still want best of everything, best of CMS, best of CRM, best of everything. So this is kind of a clue for our tech teams, especially to whoever is in like the solution architect or the tech director or roles such as this, to kind of think, okay, so they are kind of saying composable without saying composable, right? Like plug and play all these puzzle pieces that will work beautifully for their ecosystem. Another thing that came about is consolidation of tech stack. Like they have an expertise, let's say, right? Like they have a group of people who are I don't know, Next.js certified and rockstar front-end developers. They might not have a lot of Sitecore implementation partners, or they have in-house development or sort of like that, right? So when this comes about, it's important to bank on their strengths. Of course, training is good, but if they already have like a full team, it's better to kind of embrace what they are strong at, and then layer on top like a .NET developer or somebody like that to talk to the APIs or the content APIs that Sitecore provides from the XM Cloud. So that is also kind of a signal. And when they talk about maintenance, right, like infrastructure maintenance, or talk about, hey, this is getting too much for us. For example, if they have their own Azure, or if they have their own infrastructure and they're like, they don't have good team and they're spending a ton of money, and they don't know when to scale, when not to scale, they are leveraging, they want to leverage auto scaling and stuff like that, then also it's a signal that maybe XM Cloud is a good fit, right? And last but not the least, I would call out speed to market, because that's one of the core strengths of XM Cloud, because of just the general way of the implementation on how we componentize and how we provide these components to the content authors and the marketers. The speed to market is, definitely a goal that comes to mind when we talk about XM Cloud. Now, we heard it, we kind of thought, okay, XM Cloud is a good fit. Now, how do we tell them, like, okay, XM Cloud is it, like, by kind of tying every point that I just mentioned there to some of this. And I'm not going to go in depth here, but because it's like so one-to-one almost, like, talk about future proofing, right? Like, the whole world is sort of going into the headless rhythm. And, not most of our clients, I would say a good percentage and good chunk of our clients usually comes with a technical partner who is also as excited as us, like in terms of embracing something new. Being prepared for the next 5 years, and how can we make sure that we are not like redoing stuff. Of course, there is a revamp that is necessary every 2 years for a web kind of presence, but a full on, like, at Verndale we call it like transformation, that people say, okay, at least 4 years. Like, we spent a lot of work, a lot of effort here, a lot of money here, a lot of finances. So they want to kind of future proof the solution. So XM Cloud 100% fits what I mentioned and more. And one of the core important things I want to mention here is faster and easier upgrades. This is a very good selling point, because people who have done upgrades kind of know that it's not like, oh yeah, we just done in like 2 days. It's not that kind of effort for upgrades in general with XP or XM products. So it takes effort, it takes time, it takes tremendous amount of testing back again, and a lot of security hardening and all the chores that kind of come up with like a brand new installation of Sitecore. One of the perks for me, which is very, very important, is the faster and easier upgrades. Some automated, right? Like, there are few upgrades that, like, patch upgrades that kind of happen automatically. There are few which need developer attention because they might be breaking changes in there, but it's significantly lesser than what we have done in the past with XP and XM. So that for me, alongside of faster performance, modern web development and infrastructure, easier infrastructure maintenance, are the key. All right, now we're going to jump into thought fragments. So with any Sitecore implementation, actually with any web implementation, even putting Sitecore aside for a second as well, integrations are kind of integral part, right? Like of a composable stack. When we have landed here, which means that the client is interested and we know the business case, and now we have to kind of look at it from the tech side as well, right? Like we want to make sure that the client and whoever is kind of coming to us knows that there could be some outdated technologies that needs to be replaced with another option, especially a SaaS option, as much as possible, to ensure that they have a apples to apples to some sort, so they're not missing a functionality, missing something core that's important for their business. So that is super important to lay it in front of them. And of course, it's not like a one call or two calls with the client. Sometimes it takes like a discovery kind of sessions, right? Like, okay, couple sessions to kind of understand what they have right now, what will be a corresponding option. Sometimes the clients have their own opinions that they want to bring to the table. So it's important to kind of say, okay, what is the integration? What is the current integration? What would be the replacement? A good example that comes to my mind, and this happens like pretty much with every implementation starting, I would say, 2021, 2022, as I remember it. Before, it used to be like solar. It's fine. We do a website search. It's all good. Before 2020, there was still Coveo, there was still Algolia, but very rarely. But after 2020, I think people saw this pattern of like where users need search. They need an enterprise search, right? Like not just solar search. And of course, solar is not any less powerful, to be honest. Solar can be tweaked, but at the end of the day, it's an open source product, which means that everything will be custom work, which we all know custom work will lead to its own roadmap of things, right? Like there could be a lot of issues because it's newer implementation, a lot of QA will be required. But instead, people started embracing tools such as Coveo and Algolia, actually, like, even back in the day, 2018, 2019. But now come fast forward to 2023, we have, and 2024, we have Sitecore search in the game as well. So it's important that to bring this up early in the talks with the client to ensure that they know, hey, it's not just going to be XM Cloud and the pieces that they have in their ecosystem, but there could be more that needs to be added in. Same with the forms. We do have Sitecore XM Cloud forms now, but let's say for whatever reason, again, we have to remember XM Cloud is an ongoing product. Like every week, every 2 weeks, there is some feature that is being launched. There's some newness that's happening. So XM Cloud Forms will continue to evolve. But let's say, based on, we all know there are tricky timelines, there are tricky situations. We all have to combat. And let's say we have to kind of pick, and XM Cloud Forms is not there yet. That's definitely an option, but you can even talk about other marketing automation platforms like, Pardot, Eloqua, and other things that come into mind if they want like really robust, and maybe there are functionality gaps. From my perspective, I would always try XM Cloud Forms, similar to how I tried, Sitecore, I think 9.x forms. It was fairly new, but we went with it and it was an MVP, and then we continued to enhance that as we rolled. Similar approach can be followed here too, and again, depends on the client, but it's important to call out some of these things. Now, one thing, I mean, I know I mentioned smart commerce here, but that's something like, when you have commerce related, projects, it's important to call out that there could be an element of smart commerce. It could also be Sitecore product as well, but you never know if they already purchased something. So it's important to bring that up as well. One thing I want to mention here, and I don't have it right here, is a notion of when clients say, let's migrate to XM Cloud, they almost always think that it's just a refactor. It's just an upgrade. It's probably just revamping some of the things here and there. Maybe, but maybe not. It depends on how their architecture is and how their solution is right now. If they're already kind of, let's say, partly headless, partly not, then maybe they are right. There could be some revamping that's needed, and that's pretty much it. But for a heavy XP XM solutions, it's not refactor, it's a rebuild. Because we have to write everything in the front end technology, in the Next.js things, and API driven approaches. So I think it's important to not let them be in that opinion, if that's true. So just wanted to call that out as well. All right, just noting time here. Okay, we are good. Now, what I always think to ensure that the clients can understand better, like how they can get there once they are like, okay, XM Cloud is it, right? Is to think about template system, right? And that's what Sitecore also kind of encourages in XM Cloud, because at the end of the day, the power is, as we all talked about already, speed to market. So we want to ensure that they spend considerable amount of time building a strong foundation, right? When I say foundation here in Sitecore, it's actually template system. So when they have that template system, then the next set of sites become easier. It becomes easier to implement, easier to deliver. Just the first step is what we need to kind of hard sell with XM Cloud. And again, in one of the scenarios, there were like multiple brands, right? Like, there was obviously one company, parent company, but there were several brands, and everybody was like, oh, we want to redesign our own brand in its own way. Of course, we want to try to kind of strike towards consistency and kind of talk to them that consistency is also important, because consistency is what makes this beautiful, right? Like, if we don't have consistency and if every site needs its own functionality, then the template system kind of won't work. So for me, what helped personally was to talk a lot about this strong template system that we built for the first site, and then lay out a plan for the next subsequent set of sites once the integrations have been identified and we know the replacement and the effort for some of those. And this is a kind of an example that we put together for a real client, which made them realize it's not as tedious as it seemed. Because at the end of the day, for clients, they want to see value, right? Like, they want to see ROI. Now, when you have the first site, let's say, and deliver the first site, is when they will start seeing the ROI. Now, here, what we laid out is a 3-year kind of roadmap, because they have X number of sites. And we suggested, hey, do design and discovery very thoroughly for the first one to build the foundation, and use that to kind of whip up the new sites. And as you can see how the build is, even reskinning and build is so much lesser than the first one. It kind of made sense for them once we put this together, and hopefully it might help some of you as well when you are in cusp of these conversations with the clients. One of the other things that this really helps is to tie in where the ROI is. Like, for example, let's say if they don't do this, there might be upgrade that's upcoming, because we all know Sitecore XP versions have an expiry. It comes with an expiry date, right? Like, we can't be on that version for long. And even at Verndale, we don't recommend going past a certain, licensing period on older XP versions, given the security threats and other setbacks that could cost them. So if you had an upgrade in the middle here, if they don't do XM Cloud roadmap, we can say, hey, look, you're also kind of gaining some momentum, but also avoiding the cost of upgrade as we roll. And the parallel tracks can continue to happen. Like, I'm sure every agency world has their own way of helping the clients. We do have a maintenance that we do. So the maintenance track can continue to happen when we are doing this. So it allows that for that parallel aspect as well. And last but not least, I don't have a slide for this, but I think it was important to talk about projecting the costs. Now, we can't talk about XM Cloud licensing, because as you all know, it depends very heavily on traffic and needs for lower environments, so on and so forth. But it is important to project that cost with your Sitecore partner, right? Like, whoever you're working with, and lay that with the upgrade that I just mentioned, and say, look, this is going to cost XYZ, but it also going to help you with the future proofing. It will also help you cut down costs on upgrades, and future upgrades will not happen. So that is why I was calling out upgrades so much even in the past, because it's not cheap to upgrade a very heavy Sitecore XP, for example, solution to latest and greatest version of XP. So by doing all of this, you are kind of laying it all on the table, and then the client will be comfortable enough. According to us, this worked. Not in one instance, but maybe 2 instances so far. So I thought it's worth sharing with you all the strategy of taking the next leap and future proofing our clients. And hey, it's a win-win, because we want to work on latest and greatest, and we want to work on XM Cloud. For that, we have to convince our clients. So hopefully this helped. And yeah, I mean, it's a repeat of what I just mentioned. The future is here, so we better get up. I think one thing I forgot to mention, I want to just call out, is the bundling option. When you talk to your Sitecore partner, please make sure you talk about the bundle. Let's say if you need Sitecore Search, for example, or Sitecore 360 or CDP or personalized, depending on your needs, I think there is a bundle that could potentially save some cost for the client. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I hope I'm good on time, Krista, but open for Q&A.
You're good on time. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but please feel free to post, everyone. I do have that open. I did post the first thread there to get everyone started.
Awesome. I'll
All
stop
right.
my
Thank you,
share.
Deepthi. That was great.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, Megan, are you ready?
I am ready. Everyone forgive me. They are doing a fire drill in our building right now, and I think it's almost over, but if you hear whooping in the background, I hope it's not too distracting. It's fine.
No worries.
I
We can't hear
apologize,
anything
but-
right now.
Okay, good. I think they might be over. So I will share my screen. All right. So my topic today is not new. It's something that I talk about quite a lot internally, externally on LinkedIn, kind of all over the place. So you may have heard me talk about some of this before. My name is Megan Mueller-Jensen. When I submitted to speak at this webinar, I was still on the strategy side, building websites as a senior solutions architect. On April 1st, I moved over to the dark side. I'm now in sales. So thank you for still letting me in the club a little bit longer. I'm a 3-time Sitecore strategy MVP, and I work at Proficient out of the Twin Cities. So we have done a lot of projects over the last couple of years that are kind of project rescue. There's an organization who isn't happy with their website. They need to make changes. Maybe they had an implementation that went south, that they didn't have a great partner, and we come in to kind of save the day. Everybody does it. You know, I'm sure those of you on the call who work for agencies and consultancies have been pulled in to do something similar. And since I'm on the marketing side, I very often talk to the marketing team about what's working, what's not. And sometimes, I know we've all heard it, somebody says, I hate Sitecore. And if you dig in a little bit, it's not really that they hate Sitecore. It's that there's something they're trying to make it do that they think it can't do, but it was either set up incorrectly or they were not trained properly. So I have learned over the years that training is probably one of the most important we do as strategists, as consultants, as partners. Because we're handing over the keys to a very, very powerful machine. And if we take for granted that our clients just know what to do with it, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be disappointed in us, and they're probably going to blame the software, which isn't fair to Sitecore. It's our responsibility to do quality implementation and really enable and empower our clients to be comfortable and confident owning this thing that we built for them. So very often when they say, I hate Sitecore, it just wasn't implemented very well and they weren't trained very well. Part of that is almost none of us in consulting were taught how to teach. You know what I mean? We didn't go to school for this. It wasn't part of my, marketing degree, nothing like that. So we're kind of learning as we go along how to do this well. And so I'm just sharing some of the things that I have picked up over the last many, many years of doing this with teams of all kinds. So I started my first agency consulting position 7 years ago for a small company called Sundog that was then acquired by Proficient. And the guy in this picture in the Cubs hat, I'm not sure where I'm pointing, where it is on your screen, it's over there for me, is Dave Jones. And he was the guy that hired me. And I was hired to be a writer. Bobcat was our biggest client. And so I was going to be writing about excavators and skid steers and, loaders and things like that. And when I asked him, what's the one thing I really need to get good at in this job? He said, you need to learn how to make your clients feel smart. And those were probably the wisest words I've gotten in this part of my career, is that it's really important to empower your clients, make them feel smart, make them feel confident. And that's something that I've taken really seriously over the last few years. Just need to note that David was beloved by this whole team. He unfortunately passed away about a year ago. So there are many times that I wish that I could bounce things off my old boss, Dave, but I think he'd be happy that this little piece of wisdom has lived on after him. This is my mom. She's 70. She's just fine. She is brilliant. She is the most grandma Betty Crocker person you'll ever meet. She bakes fresh bread 3 times a week, and she cans her own food and has a garden, and she can sew, and she's like very grandma-y. But under that veneer, she is a brilliant woman. She was a sergeant at our local jail for about 35 years, which does not fit her personality at all, but she took it pretty seriously. And part of that was she felt a responsibility to understand the laws and the legislation that led people to being incarcerated. And because she felt like she needed a responsibility to understand the factors that people went through to get to where they ended up, and the laws that affected them. So to this day, she retired many years ago. She can still, recite statute, recite law to the number, and not only state, but federal and local municipalities, that sort of thing. So the woman is so, so smart. She's just not smart about the things that I do. So when I talk to my mom about work things, I have to say things like, I build websites. This is Sitecore is the platform. Proficient is my company, things like that. Like, I need to explain things to her simply because we don't speak the same language. It does not mean that my mother is not a smart person. She just doesn't speak our language. And this was one of the first things I had to understand was, how to translate for people outside of our industry and for people outside of development. So one of the first things, let's see if I can move this, is to understand that we speak a different language. And for folks who are new to Sitecore, that's even more exponential because Sitecore really likes initialisms and acronyms and weird terminology that isn't necessarily intuitive. If you're new to this universe, I was at a Sitecore user group about 6 months ago, and halfway through the evening, we take a little break and refill your pop and whatever. And I started making conversation with the guy next to me, and where are you from and stuff. And he asked me why I was there. And I said, well, I do this for a living. I'm a Sitecore strategy MVP, blah, blah, blah. I've worked with Sitecore for a long time. And I said, why are you here? And he said, I was just hired as the digital marketing director of blank, very big company here in the Twin Cities that you have all heard of. And he pointed at the title slide of the next speaker, and he said, I'm here because I don't know what a single word on that slide means. And it was just the title. So he was coming from a job where he had a ton of expertise and experience and authority, but because they weren't a Sitecore shop, he was starting at square one. And that was a real eye-opener for me, that we sometimes assume that everybody is like on the same point in the learning curve that we're on. Nope, brilliant, experienced, C-level people, director level people are starting from square one, and we need to remember to teach to them as well. Not everybody has been in this universe with us for the last 10, 15 years, and understand kind of the concepts and terminology that we do. So make sure that you're translating kind of in two scenarios, from Sitecore people to new Sitecore people, like they need to understand. And then from technology to non-technology people is really difficult too. We've had some developers, and I've seen developers speak at symposium and things like that, and they speak a different language. And to marketing folks, it can feel, their perception can be that I'm being talked over, I am being condescended to, you're talking down to me, or you're talking over me. You're using big words just to use big words and sound smart. We don't need to be the smartest people in the room. Our audience does. Okay, so it's really important to be able to explain things to non-technical people, not using jargon, not using lingo, not using initialisms and acronyms, just use plain English and spell it all out. And then teach from the bottom up. When we do content author training, marketing training, art of the possible type workshops, I assume that everybody is like that guy sitting next to me at that Sitecore user group. They don't know anything. And I typically just spell it out at the beginning, like, look, some of you may know a lot of what I'm talking about already. Some of you may not. I'm going to teach as if we're starting from first grade, from scratch. Not because I don't think you're, intelligent and educated, but because I don't want to assume anything and have you miss any concepts that are going to be important later on. So start at the bottom, but tell them why you're starting at the bottom. The other thing I like to do is teach ahead of my work. when we have been doing work now with especially like CDP and personalized, there's some terminology that doesn't initially make sense to folks who are new to the platform. They talk about experiences and experiments and offers and templates and things like that, that if you are kind of a civilian, it can be really confusing. Like even our team for the first few months working with CDP and personalized, like the term offer really threw me for a loop because I thought it was literally like a promotion, a sale, a limited time offer. That's not what it is. It's just a piece of content. So like making that really, really clear from the get-go, but kind of get ahead of it a little bit. So if you're doing 2-week sprints and you're going to start talking about a concept in sprint 4, send out a glossary on during sprint 3 and say, these are some of the concepts we're going to start talking about in the next couple of weeks. Here is what we mean when we talk about X. And then put it together in kind of an aggregated Word document so that each week or each batch of terminology or things that you try to teach, you add to it. So at the end, they have everything together in one big document. Don't make them do the labor of like keeping track of all this stuff that you send over onesie twosie. Assure them that you are going to put it all together. They're going to get it in one big batch of documents and artifacts at the end. So I found that don't teach them everything at the beginning because that can be really overwhelming. But if you can kind of stay ahead of your project plan and teach and train as you go, that's really beneficial. When we're doing workshops, working sessions, ideation, anytime we're doing something and I'm the one presenting, I am not the one taking notes. If you have a project manager, business analyst, anyone else on your team that can take meticulous notes while you are running or facilitating meeting, that's super helpful. And be really clear to that person taking notes. If anybody asks a question, that should be a flag for them. And they need to record not only the question that was asked, but who asked that question and what our answer was. I'm a little ADD and I can be a little bit scattered. If I'm in a meeting and somebody explains something to me, I think, oh yeah, I totally get it. And then I get out of the meeting and the next day I'm like, what was that again? Does that make sense? Like, I don't always remember the next day, like I thought I understood in the moment. So whoever's taking those notes, have them record what the question is, who asked it, and what was the answer that we provided, and make sure that you follow up in your meeting notes or whatever, follow up you have. Reiterate what the question was and what the answer was so that they can go back the next day and say, oh, that's right. They said it was ABC, because sometimes our explanations are kind of complicated. So just make sure that they get it in writing after the fact and maybe keep a log of them, whether it's in Confluence or whatever you use to manage your project. It's a good thing to just keep track of those things because you may need to go back to it again in the future. And then I'm meticulous with my training documentation. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It's one of the, I think, most important things that we hand off at the end. Assure your client that it's a living document. You may change things, add things, rearrange things as you go along, but by the end of it, that is their textbook. And if somebody joins their team 6 months after we're gone, I want them to be able to use that textbook and all the other artifacts that we leave behind and get up to speed to the people who were in the original training. Things change, teams grow, people leave, people join. So you want to leave behind something that is useful to them because it's going to be used by people joining their team or just future reference. Maybe you build something for your client that they're not going to use for 6 months or a year. Make sure they can go back and very easily kind of relearn what you taught them the first time. Make sure when you do your documentation, and this is why I save my documentation, a lot of it for the very end, because I want screenshots of their instance. I want them to know if they're opening Experience Editor, they have a map of exactly where to find the little button that they need, where to find the icon, what does it mean, that sort of thing. It can be overwhelming for folks, especially if they're not in there very often, to find the exact thing that they need to find. So this is an example of, it's kind of an older version. This is for XP, but this is some of the content author training guide stuff that I put in. It's a huge Word document, and at the beginning they get a table of contents, and it links down in the document. If you need to get to the home page, if you need to get to the glossary, put it all in there so it's really easy for them to jump ahead and find what they're looking for. And then I do screenshots with circles and arrows and reminders. Remember to save. Don't freak out if it looks this way. You need to reload this, that sort of thing. And go through the whole content authoring process yourself so that when you run into weirdness, you can point out the weirdness so they don't think they did something wrong. They didn't screw up. Like, you just need to do this one extra thing that's not intuitive, and feel free to make it conversational. They're just humans trying to follow along, getting their job done. I've also found that it's really helpful to give like icon libraries. What does this little thing mean? What does that little thing mean? It'll help them a lot as they get started and get used to that stuff. So make everything super visual, very well organized, easy to page through, that sort of thing. And then I provide different types of training artifacts. Of course, we record every training, every meeting, that sort of thing, and we hand that off. But don't make them like fast forward through 2 or 3 hours of training to find the one weird thing that you explained. Give them the decks, of course, documentation, but I also do a lot of like cheat sheets, glossaries, icon libraries, that sort of thing, so that they don't have to wade through like a voluminous amount of stuff or a really long meeting recording to find the thing that they need to find to just finish their page. Make it easy for them. And then never, ever, ever make your client rely on their own memory. Like I said, I'm the worst one ever for like thinking I'm going to remember this. I'm going to understand that. And then a day or two later, I've completely forgotten what the answer was. Don't make them rely on their own memory. Send preemptive, not reminders, but kind of memorialization of conversations that you've had, that sort of thing, so they can go back and look without bugging you. And if they say, hey, I know I asked you that last week, but can you explain again how to do this? Don't ever shame them if they forget, if they thought they understood in the moment, but they do need more clarification. I've known people to do this who like, well, I explained that last time. Don't do that. They're smart people. They're trying. Just be gracious and a good teacher. So never, ever, ever say the words, as I explained before. Just don't. You're putting the onus on them. You're making them, feel dumb. Just don't do it. Don't condescend. Don't, treat your clients with respect. You think that that's a given, but it isn't always. That's one of the gripes I've heard from a lot of the clients who have left partners was, they ticked me off. They acted like I was dumb. They, didn't provide great training. They gave us a 2-page Word document and they were gone. The responsibility is ours to make sure they understand. And I hate the term mansplain, but don't mansplain. Like, even if you're not a man, just like be cool and respectful when you're doing teaching and training, especially when folks are having a hard time understanding. And pretty much everything I've just said applies to our clients, but also to our colleagues. If you have new hires or people who are new to Sitecore, new to the industry, new to your business unit or department, all of this goes for them. If you're in a meeting with a junior colleague and they have to ask a question later on, just be cool about it. They're trying their best. We're all learning as we go along. So some of my kind of like core tenets, things that I really, really preach is be generous with your time and expertise. The things that we learn and the knowledge that we hold in our heads is absolutely no good if we don't share it with our colleagues and our clients and the community and that sort of thing. That's our responsibility, because chances are every one of us got here because of the generosity of someone else. Acknowledge the learning curve. It's perfectly okay if you tell a client or a new colleague, look, it took me a really long time to understand this concept. Here's some things I read that helped it make more sense to me, or here's the person who explained it to me. Maybe they can help you, or I don't know. It's okay to say that. I know as consultants, we feel like we always have to know the answer to everything. And I have a hard time when I don't know the answer, but it's okay. These are complex products. It's a complex thing we're trying to do. So it's okay if you say to a client, you know what, I've never really run into that before, and I want to give you the right information. So give me 1 day to track down the correct answer and I will get it back to you. And that's a really important part. We're not bull-essing our clients, just to make ourselves seem smart. Reiterate to them that I want to give you good information. I'm going to go track that down and let you know what the correct answer is. And in the end, every single one of us is still learning. Whether you're on the strategy side, the business side, the development side, in our industry, the work we do, and especially with Sitecore products, as soon as you think you know everything, there's going to be a new iteration, there's going to be a new product, there's going to be a new trend, that sort of thing. And if any of us are in this industry and think, finally, I'm the expert, I know everything there is to know, you probably need to get out of this line of work because your ego is too big. And if you think there's nothing left to know, you're probably in the wrong industry. So that's my little soapbox about that. So I hope this has been kind of helpful. If folks on the call have things that you want to share, things that have worked for you, things that your organization typically does, if you're on the client side and you've had frustrations, I'd like to hear them too. I know this was kind of quick, so we do have time for conversation. If you have anything for myself or Deepthi, either one of us, I think would be fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan and Deepthi.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any questions coming in, but for those of you that are attending, if you do have questions after the fact, as you're thinking about it, sometimes that happens. I know that happens to me a lot. If you're thinking about it, please feel free to reach out. And if you're not sure on how to reach out to us, you can try smac@sitecore.com. We'll be sure to get in touch with Deepthi. And there, Deepthi just put her on Twitter. You can reach her there. Her handle for that. And then Megan, if you want to post yours, you can too. Please feel free. The reason they come here and speak is because they want to share. They want to talk with you guys. They want to share what they're learning and hear from you guys as well. So awesome. Thank you so much.
There is one question. Do I use any tools to build user manuals or guides? I am an old lady and I don't have time for more tools and things. I use Word documents and PowerPoints and things like that. I don't use anything fancy, mostly because they change with every single project and every single client. Like certainly there are things that I reuse, but every project is different. And they're using different versions and that sort of thing. So really I'm starting from scratch a lot of the time. So no, I don't have any magic tools. I wish I did.
Awesome. Okay. Great. And then also we will get this posted on, they said thank you. We will get this posted on YouTube for additional viewing. If you guys want to watch it again, it will get there. We gave it about a week and it will be up. All right. Thank you, Deepthi and Megan. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. And thank you, Krista, for moderating us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.